Ta-da! Hello, everybody. It's Gina from EtherFlows podcast. And with me today is another super special guest. His name's Andy Garland. He is an experiencer. He is a highly sensitive person who is extremely psychic and just a fantastic bird owner. And
Yeah, bird
with us
dad.
also is Benny. He is a how would you describe Benny?
He is a Portuguese tumbler pigeon. He just brought me a skeleton leg. I don't know if you saw that, but
I did see that.
I was like, wow, the timing right now.
Yeah.
But he's a cutie. He is, I guess, semi-famous on, Instagram, the social medias, TikTok, that sort of thing. Even
Why
though
is
I
he
don't view him
famous?
that way. Well, I just started making videos about him, like when I got him. Well, I guess I'll start from the beginning. So I started having dreams about a bird in my house, and I was like, "This is weird. Like, why is there a bird in my house?" And it was a black bird. I had no idea what was going on, and it was just like reoccurring, And about 2 weeks after that, I just saw on Facebook that someone was in my area was like getting rid of, these like pigeons, and I didn't even see a picture of Benny or anything. He was just like, "Oh, I'm just getting rid of, you know, some of my pigeons. Like, if anyone wants it, they're free." So I went over to this guy's like property, and he loves his pigeons so much. He's like a pigeon racer, which is looked down upon, in the pigeon world quite a bit, but it is like the oldest sport in existence. And this guy really cared about his birds. Like he spent like all his retirement money like making, his
Wow.
lofts and things like that. But he also did like competitive breeding and show pigeons and stuff. And so he just had like extra pigeons that he was just giving away because they didn't really meet the criteria to be a show pigeon. So he was like, yeah, just pick whatever one you want. And Benny was causing a lot of havoc. Like he was like, flying around flirting with everyone. Like he was just a character. So I picked him out and took him home, and it took about, 2 months before he really started bonding with me. And as he was bonding with me, it just like blew my mind, what he was capable of and his body language and just how affectionate and sweet. And it's like, doves and pigeons are known as like the love, not lovebirds, but like the lovey birds. Like they're always associated with like Valentine's Day or love. And I started really like understanding why. Like they connect with one person, only. And they can get along, like he gets along with my partner and stuff too, but he's so bonded with me and he can like read my mind, like he's just amazing. Like if I'm sick, he'll try to break through the door just to get to me. Like if I'm not feeling well, um, he'll just like scream at the door because I the door to his room connects to like my bedroom, and he will
Mm.
try to shove himself under the door just to get to me. Like he's
Wow.
so just amazing and like in tune with me, and he's just like the coolest little guy ever. But I call him my familiar, because
Mm.
like sometimes in the morning I'll come in here and like take a nap with him. If I wake up early, I'll come in here and take a nap, and he'll sleep in my hands, and we travel in dreams together. So we will have dreams
Really?
together. And he'll
Wow.
be there, right next to me in my dreams. So he's definitely with me on the other side, and he probably always has been.
Right. Yeah, probably. So how did like the TikTok stuff sort of start?
So all of that started when I, like 2 months in, I really saw how he was communicating with me. And a lot of it was telepathic, and a lot of it was just mind blowing. And I started like, looking on TikTok and Instagram for other people, and I didn't really even use social media before this, but for other people who had pigeons. And I found a few, but I couldn't really find anyone that was like showing their body language and how sweet they are and how they communicate. And so I started just making videos of him, communicating with me and just how affectionate and sweet he was. And just cute videos, some of them like just 30 seconds long. And I just started posting them every day. And he kind of blew up like overnight. Like people
Wow.
just started, obsessing over it, and they could see like his body language, and they could see, how sweet and affectionate that they are. And I also just wanted to help like change people's minds when it came
Mm,
to pigeons, because a lot of people don't really know like that pigeons were created by humans and that we just kind of abandoned them. Like we literally created them, worshiped them for thousands of years, and then just forgot about our connections with them. And
mm.
they never forgot about us. They have to have humans to survive. And so that's why pigeons are in like New York City, and they're always around people. They have to be. They can't survive on their own. Like we created them that way. And so they're just really adorable and a lot different than other birds too. Like with parrots and like even lovebirds or the more tropical birds, they
Mm.
haven't been, in captivity for very long, like a very short amount of time, and so they have a lot more behavioral issues, and they can be pretty bitey. They can hurt a lot, like do a lot of
Well,
damage.
and yeah, but they also live forever, and I feel pretty strongly that, like, I don't know. I mean, if you got one from a rescue that needed a home, that's, I personally would do that, but otherwise I just feel
For
like
sure.
they're not really meant to be pets, especially
Yeah.
so many of them still get kidnapped from the jungle and,
Hmm.
sold into families that don't understand them. And of course they're going to have behavioral issues because of the
Hmm.
PTSD and everything, all the trauma that they've
And that passes down
endured,
for many generations too.
just like us. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what kind of like give me some examples of some of the telepathic communication you guys would have.
So when he was like still really scared of me, and he would like not want to approach me, I would notice, and I used to be a dog trainer, so I know kind of how to do this a little bit. I would change my energy. So just like if you've ever worked with like horses are one that is pretty close to birds, like the ways they communicate. I would just change my energy and I would start sending him messages of
Mm,
me, preening him, petting him, and just, like I'm doing now. Like I would just send him those mental images. And as soon as he would receive it, he would let me know. Like he would give me this like affectionate look. Like he would slow blink or he would nod. And there's different like body language that birds do. Like nodding is how, they tell you that you're pretty. But it's also just like a reassuring thing for them. And slow
mm,
blinking, just like a cat does. So he would and it would be crazy because I would send him an image and he would stop everything he was doing and look
mm,
at me and, nod or slow blink. And he every day he would come closer and he finally let me start petting him. And after that first day, he never went, he's just been, here with me. Like
yeah.
never went back to being, scared. But just that sort of stuff. And the way that he knows what I'm feeling. Like if I'm sick, he's just with me like this, like uh, doesn't leave my side.
Protective.
If I leave his room, he will try to bust through the door, if I'm not feeling well, like just to get to me. Um,
Hmm.
he's just like so amazing. Um, but just little ways like that,
Hmm.
the little, and he would um he would like doze off, in his nest, and he would sleep in my hand and doze off, and then wake up and nod and get excited, like just to see me.
Mm.
And it's just like true unconditional love, you know.
Yeah.
And so
Love
just little
that.
things like that. Like it's almost hard to explain, but it's like everyone that has an animal has had these moments, these like magical
Exactly.
moments with animals. And I think that they communicate in the way that we are supposed to communicate, but we've kind of lost touch with that. And so
Yeah.
having animals like reminds us of who we are in a way.
I definitely agree. And I feel like when we think about the word telepathy, we think about like either like a big booming voice in our heads or, like words across our third eye or, like these very kind of obvious sort of examples. But there's so many different ways that you can that you can experience telepathy. It can be through feelings, it can be through senses, feeling cold, on certain parts of your body. It can be smells, even like with the Sasquatch people, they'll project like campfire smell to me when they want me to go out in the woods,
Mm-hmm.
or, like a skunky sort of smell when they're, hanging out by my house. I can tell it's them.
Hmm.
It's different. It's definitely different from
Or
like
like people
actual
that have
smell.
had like their grandpa pass and they smell
Hmm.
cigars.
Oh yeah,
Like
for
there's
sure.
so many different, and with telepathy, most of it is subtle. It's
Hmm.
very, very rare that you're going to actually like see something or experience something. Like, of course, that happens. Some people, have access to that more than others. But for the regular person, most of it is internally. It is an
Hmm.
internal thing. It's very subtle. And most of us shrug it off. Like most people just don't really, think that it's real. And so therefore they're not reinforcing that belief and they're never going to be in tune with that. But
Mm.
that's one thing. It's like all of it comes down, everything that we experience comes down to our belief systems. So if you tell yourself that it's real and you spend your life like looking for that proof, even like a small thing, like thinking about my brother and he calls immediately.
Hmm.
Those sorts of things. Like what I tell people is write it down because when it happens, we forget it. Like it just, it'll happen and we'll be like, oh, that was weird, and then we'll just go on with our lives. But having a journal where you can document all this stuff, like numbers that you see, weird feelings that you get, you can start to make a log of how you experience like that telepathy. And because every person experiences it in a different way. Some people it might be through music or just a gut feeling, intuition, or dreams. Taking note of how you experience it, and then being willing to work with that and do make healthy choices in your life that will allow you to experience it more as well.
Mm. Yeah, my wife, she loves to have her phone, like all of her music on shuffle. And
Yeah.
she she's verbalized it. She's like, yeah, I like to use it as kind of, she hasn't said like a communication tool, but that's basically what it is. She's like, yeah, I'm just very open to seeing what the messages could be. So it could be
Hmm.
like, billboards, or it could be just an urge to call somebody, or an urge to go on a walk somewhere, to go to a certain place. It could be, like you said, it is subtle, but it's also, you can develop it, and it's a really good way to communicate with your teams, your guides, yourself,
Absolutely.
and your Sasquatch friends, whatever you want, your
Yeah,
ET
and
friends,
also
whoever.
like that's even what like tarot is too, because a lot of people
Hmm.
have
Oh
this
yeah.
misconception that tarot is just about telling the future. And I like to tell people like it can be, but that's not its primary goal. Like, we all have these archetypes of like consciousness. There's, like 22 arcana, major arcana, that are these like archetypes, and then these like ones that come off of that. And so I look at tarot of like a catalog of consciousness. And
Mm,
so when you are pulling cards, like it might be showing you what you need to work on or the
mm,
theme that you're exploring at that time. And of course, like time isn't linear. Like we just experience it linearly because of gravity, but it's not. If you go anywhere else in the universe, you won't experience time like that. So we have to remember that like everything is happening all at once. And with tarot, it can show you, that theme that you're in at that moment, or and it can predict the future, but it's not really the future. That's just what we call it from this
mm.
perspective.
Right. And honestly, I try to stay away from getting into that like kind of hamster wheel of like, okay, cards, tell me what my future is going to be, tell me what this month
Yeah.
is going to be like, because it's like, I feel, for me anyway, I feel like it would be easy for me to develop a dependence on that. And so what I like to do, and I kind of just started getting into the tarot. I find it
Same.
fascinating, but for some reason I felt resistance until recently. But like, I'll pull a card a day and just ask my teams, ask myself, to show me a card that represents energy that I can contemplate, you know,
Hmm.
like an energy that I could be working on, or an energy that I could be working towards, something. There's so many different ways to do it. And I'm not, honestly, I don't even do like spreads or anything like that. I'm
Mhm.
just like, give me 3 cards for today,
People make it like
energies that
really
I can
complicated when it doesn't really have to be that complicated.
really.
Yeah. Yeah, like I mean, just like how you were doing, that is the perfect way to do it because like I mean, it's called like path working, right? So there's all of these, different personality traits of consciousness. The arcana represents like if you study like Carl Jung or any of these people who literally developed like modern psychology, they
Mhm.
talk about this and they even talk about like the tarot cards and it's just a map of consciousness. But when you're pulling a card a day, you're exploring the map. You're getting familiar with the map. And so when you have something in your life that is aligned with maybe like the tower card, like absolute chaos, or you can look at that and be like, okay, this is the energy that I'm working through right now. And you can find those tools to help you work through that energy. And so it's almost like giving a face to the different things you might be going through. And in that
Mhm.
way, it's incredibly helpful. So I
Yeah.
love just like the card a day thing because it's like I went through like a year and a half where I did that and just well I would do like a month or so like with per different major arcana and
Mhm.
just work through like the high priestess and what she represents and work through like the fool and all the different energies and that's when I really started like noticing how we live in a matrix because when I would start working with a card my whole life would be around that theme. It was crazy.
So when you say work through, like what explain what what either what your process is or like how you interpret that, because I feel like people could be like, what does that even mean, you know?
Yeah, well, everyone does it differently, and there's like this is kind of what I love to study the occult, and it served me like really well for a few years when I was just learning all this stuff. But there's so many different ways to do it. Like people have books about how to initiate, right? Or go through like different energies. Really, in the most simple way, what you're doing is you are becoming familiar with every single energy of consciousness. So it's like the tarot deck represents that, right? So what I would do for me is I would separate the 22 arcana and I would just pull a card. And that card would be the energy that I would be like, okay, if this takes 1 month, if it takes 2 to 3 months, this is the energy that I'm going to work through to learn this aspect of myself. So
Hmm.
what I would do, and it's very personalized. Some people do rituals, they'll like wear certain crystals that are correspondent with those cards. What I did is I would draw. So I would choose a card and I would start a drawing, and that drawing would take me 2 to 3 months to finish.
Oh,
And I would work on it the whole time and I would not even know what it was going to be. I would just like meditate and draw. I would
mm,
put on, certain frequencies for that card. I would, wear certain crystals for that card, and every day I would be open to experiencing what that card had to offer me, even if it was a negative card. I would be open to it. And what I found is that even the negative ones would show me something about myself that like I would work through trauma. Like it almost like shadow work,
mhm.
like working through um I'm trying to think of an example, but I forget what card it was. It might have honestly been the death card. But just even working with like the death card, I went to visit my grandma. She's like 87, and I worked through a lot of stuff. Like I cried for like a week straight, and afterward it was just like this huge weight off my shoulders. And so it really shows you the things that you're holding back, like doing path working and working through the different energies of the tarot deck. It like
Mm.
reveals the stuff that you're holding on to. That being said, it's not for everyone because some people they hold on to those traumas to protect themselves and they're not in a good spot to be able to work on that stuff. So I would just say like you have to be in a point in your life where you're ready to dive into the subconscious mind
Right.
and you're in a
Yeah.
safe place to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you're not feeling stable a certain day, you wake up, you're feeling just kind of like, I don't know, a little jittery, a little just not yourself, it's probably not a good day to pull a card. or
Yeah.
at least do it after you clean up your energy, you do your morning meditations, you're feeling more centered. But so the way that I think I'm doing it kind of similar to how you are is, so I got this deck that really spoke to me. I didn't, I waited a long time until I found this certain deck that I was like, oh, I really love this art. I love it. So I got this deck and I was like, okay, I'm not even gonna, I got the guidebook, but I was like, I'll use it if I need to. But otherwise, I kind of just want to develop a relationship with the cards on my
Hmm.
own. And so I
That's
actually
the best way to do
started
it.
I started sleeping with the deck under my pillow so it could kind of
Yeah.
like get my energy. And I did that for about a week. And then I pulled some cards, and I was not in a great space at that time, that day. And I was like, okay, give me three cards for, energy that I can contemplate, energy that I need to take a look at, basically. And I pulled the Nine of Swords, and I was like, oh, rats. I was like, all
Hmm.
right, give me another one. The Ten of Swords. And I was like, one more, please. I got the Death card. And then I was like, give me a break, guys. One more, please. Give me one more clarification. The Tower. And I was like,
Oh
blah, blah,
my
blah,
goodness.
blah. Yeah, it was like, they're
When
not,
was that?
my guides. Yeah, my guides are not subtle. They're like, look, you're up in your head. You're
Hmm.
really stressing out about all this materialistic stuff, like comparing yourself to others and not feeling good enough and working through a lot of ego, and like, yeah, they couldn't have said it any better. So yeah. So I
And
mean,
it's
yeah,
part of
definitely
the
try to be
path,
centered when
right?
you do it.
Like
Yeah.
it's just part of the path. Like we're all gonna go through that because that's the
Hmm.
path that the fool takes, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you follow like one of my favorites, if you look up uh the song Ripple by the Grateful Dead, the music
Mm.
video is the path, like it's insane. It's the path that the fool follows. It's like when we're created and we're dropped here on Earth, we're all going through this initiation. Like initiation is life, essentially. And we're
Yeah.
all experiencing the different aspects of the tarot deck. The only difference, if you pull the cards, is that you know which one you're going through at that time. That's
Hmm.
literally the only difference. And so you can be more equipped to deal with it, but also you can't really ignore the things. Like a lot of people will go through life and just ignore the bad stuff. And so they get addictions, they have dependencies, and all of us have that to a certain extent, because we're human. But when you work through the tarot deck like that, it really pushes you to not ignore that stuff. And if you do, you're going to have a really terrible time. And I think that's where, um, when all the Christians were like, "Don't pull tarot cards; it's demonic. Like you'll have a bad time." Well, they weren't totally wrong, right? Like you might have a bad time, like if you're not in the space to actually work through that stuff. Because like when you pull a card, you're already dealing with that energy because
Hmm.
energy overlaps, right?
It's in
So
your
it
field
starts
already.
early and it goes late. Like it's already there. Like or else you wouldn't be pulling the card. So it's not like you can escape it. Like even if you don't pull the card, it's still there, right? So
Hmm.
it's not like you can escape it. And that's the thing with like initiation that is scary. When the ball starts rolling, you can't wake up a day and just be like, I'm out. No, it's like you can't. Like it's like you're in
Yeah.
it, you have to work through it. And that's the scary thing, with working with this stuff and working with the occult is you can't just be like, no, not today. You know,
But at the same time, keeping it in mind that everything is temporary.
absolutely.
You're gonna get through. You're gonna get through it. It's
Hmm.
just a reminder that you need to look at these energies and at these patterns, and that you are perpetuating in your life. And if you do that, things will get better.
Absolutely.
It's just another helpful reminder that, like, hey, this is something you guys got to look at. So I feel like, these are all tools. Like the pendulum's another tool, and the organite's a tool. Crystals are
Hmm.
they're all just here to support us. But yeah, I
Absolutely.
mean, we're the ones who have to do the work. So
Yeah. And it's not fun sometimes, to do
no,
that work. And it's
not all the
scary. But I also think that that's the reason why we're here. We're all here to make the fool's journey.
time. Hmm.
And if we don't do it, we'll probably just come back and get another shot at it. Like we're gonna be doing it until we win. just like a video
Hmm.
game. It's just kind of how it works, or the way I see it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, let's see. So we were talking about telepathy. Would you like to continue talking about telepathy?
Sure. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
I'm good. My train of thought is everywhere all at once. So
Mine too, and I kind of like it that way. I don't like the structured, like, write down a list of questions and try to act professional because that just doesn't feel like me. So I just like to have chats. Um, but yeah, telepathy is I for me, I've been noticing that, and I this can't kind of came out of left field. I didn't think I was like very telepathic or anything, but it's really gotten turned online recently, and I have to be careful about what I think about because
mhm.
like certain
Yeah,
people that
our
I don't
thoughts are
really want to
not
be
our
connected to, if I think about them, they'll call and stuff
Yep.
happens, or yeah, it's just I have to, and sorry to cut you off a second ago, but like I just have to be so much more intentional about my thoughts because your thoughts create your reality. And
Yep.
yeah. So anyway, what are your thoughts on telepathy?
Yeah, going off of that, everything that you think about at any given time happens for a reason. So there's no mistakes ever. And,
Mhm.
sometimes like we're like, oh man, why did I think about that person or that thing? And it just manifests. Like, first of all, that's a reminder of how powerful you actually are.
Mhm.
Like we all are batteries. We all house divinity. And so we're all capable of that. All we have to do is just believe we are and learn how to do it and refine the skill, but we all can. And I've had this happen a lot where like sometimes someone will contact me, after I think about them, and I'm like, why? Now I have to deal with this. But it's like dealing with those shadow parts of ourselves, and that's kind of the way I look at it. It's like, and I don't know like the situation or anything, but sometimes like when I was talking to my partner about this yesterday, when someone reaches out to you like that, like they might think that you're the same version of you that you were, and you're not. Like you've changed, and you might be in a separate spot, and it's okay to say like, hey, like I don't feel aligned with this anymore. And it's almost like an opportunity to use our voice and just be like, hey, like no offense, but like I'm just gonna do my own thing for a bit, and to
Mhm.
learn how to do that, because I know that a lot of us that are very like heart centered and very open, we don't like to do that. Like it's really hard.
Yeah, it is.
It's
It
really
is.
hard for
It's so hard to hurt other people's feelings, and it's hard to and I was like that for up until very recently. Like I would compromise myself and stretch myself thin, kind of that like that saying, like cut my arm off, just, or I don't know if that's an actual saying,
like people
but
pleasing.
like, but yeah, like I'd cut my arm off for you, like what, give you the shirt off my back, like whatever you need. But I wouldn't look at my own needs, and mine
Mhm.
were always at the bottom of the list, and so like when you operate from that sort of pattern, people come into your life that even if they don't intend on it, they end up like taking advantage of that,
Yep.
or sometimes they do intend on that. But like, yeah, so I've been working a lot with boundaries and a lot with codependent patterns and
Me too.
enmeshment and dysfunctional family dynamics. Yeah, it's been big for both of us. And so like really like putting the rubber to the road and putting these new patterns into practice. I've had to give up some friendships that weren't aligned for me anymore. And so in doing so, it's like you cut off the physical friendship, but there's still energy there. There's still
Mhm.
cords. There's still, a lot of stuff that you got to clean up, which I didn't really realize until, I had cut off a friendship months and months and months ago, but I had recently just thought about them very briefly. And uh that day I did a big ancestral karmic clearing on myself. And I feel like maybe it was a little, I cleared out a little too much because I feel like it kind of, the person on the other end totally felt it. and they called
Yeah.
me and tried to
Oh my
reconnect.
goodness.
Yeah, that's what it was. And I knew that I had connections with this person in other lifetimes, and so part of
Hmm.
my like karmic ancestral clearing was clearing that stuff. And so
For
they
sure.
noticed, they gave me a call, and then I felt all of these energetic cords kind of reattach, and it was so painful and uncomfortable, and I didn't really know what to do. So I reached out to a couple of friends and they gave me some advice, and I went into meditation, called in my teams and asked them to like clear, dissolve stuff. But then I also talked to their higher self and had a chat, and I was like, "Hey, this friendship, relationship, whatever it is not serving me anymore. It's not serving either of us. And so this is causing me a lot of distress and I need to separate." And I made it into sort of a ceremony, and I felt all the little plugs kind of come off, and I felt so much better. It was amazing. So
And
that was
that's
kind of,
beautiful though, because even though it was an uncomfortable experience, like it
it was a
allowed you
learning
to,
experience.
yeah, to like
Yeah.
connect and first of all, like, see maybe like if you met with that person's higher self, to see like their intention and to know that they
Mm,
weren't just trying to harm you, but to be able to like stand strong in yourself
yeah.
and who you are. Like that's such a beautiful thing because a lot of times, like in life, when we think that we're done with something, it'll always pop back up like one or two more times and be like, "Are you sure?" And it's
Right.
like just for us to be able to test like our willpower power, like that's really what it is. And so even though it was like a very uncomfortable experience, you're so much stronger because you did that.
Yeah, and it kind of taught me how to deal with stuff like that, because we all have those people in our lives who we've had entanglements with, parents or siblings or, exes or whoever. And a lot of times like that same lesson will keep popping up, that same personality type will keep popping up in your life to teach you this lesson, like you need to stand up for yourself, you need to like put some boundaries down. And if you don't clean up all that energy, it's just going to keep perpetuating. So i
Yeah.
feel like i feel like it was a pretty good lesson yesterday for sure.
Yeah, it has a ripple effect through
Mhm.
lifetimes, through like the time continuum. So it's up to us and that's why things like well happen in other lives. Like we were talking about before, time is not linear, like it's almost like circular or geometric. And so, when you're like dealing with something in this lifetime, it also mirrors onto the other lifetimes that you are experiencing in the now.
Mm.
And so like when you cut that off, like you're doing it for every lifetime. Like you're
Hmm.
doing this powerful work for every single lifetime that you've experienced that. And that's so crazy powerful. And it
Yeah.
makes sense why it's so hard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what ancestral clearing is about. It changes everything. It changes the energy of the past, of the future. It changes the whole bloodline. It changes everything. It's so important. And it's funny because a lot of this stuff I'm kind of just doing intuitively. I haven't taken courses or anything like that. It's just kind of stuff that like comes up in meditation, and I'm like, "Huh, I wonder if I can do this," and then I do it, and like my
Hmm.
reality totally changes afterwards. So it's pretty intense. Um yeah, so you wanted to talk about the telepathy tapes.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to them. I really should. I really want to. Um Actually, why don't you just sell me on this? Tell me why I should
Okay. Wow.
tell me
That's
why I should
so
listen to the telepathy tapes.
so it's basically this girl who's like an investigative journalist. Her name is Kai Dickens. And she I don't know exactly how it got started, but she was just really interested in all of these autistic, like non-speaking autistic kids or young adults that were reading people's minds and having these like crazy experiences. And the other thing is that like it's being proven scientifically. So
Mhm.
there's this Harvard and John Hopkins trained doctor. Her name is Diane. I forget what her last name is, but she started doing these experiments, these double-blind experiments on these non-speaking autistics, and she started just recording it. And she has like hundreds of hours of studies that she's done. So she wrote a book about it, and when she published it, the board took away her license. She's a certified psychologist, or psychiatrist, one of those. I mean, so like she's doing so much. She's like such an amazing person. She's so smart, and they took away her license just because she was talking about telepathy. Well, after the board read her book, they gave her license back, and they
Mm,
admitted they were like, well, this is we can't prove this wrong. Like you did everything right, but they're still not saying that it's like legitimate. But they were saying we can't prove this wrong. So Kai Dickens, this investigative journalist, um, she meets with all of these autistics and their families, and she just interviews them and takes their stories. And I mean, it is so amazing. Like the stuff that they talk about, and every episode gets crazier and crazier. And it's 10 episodes, and it's like around 45 minutes an episode.
mm,
And it starts off with just this girl who can read her mom's mind, and they do tests, and she's right 100% of the time. All these kids are right
mm,
100% of the time. It goes into like this young girl who can read hieroglyphics because she said that she has like God visits at night, and God like comes and teaches her how to
mm,
do things. So she just wakes up and can read like Hebrew or hieroglyphics, and she's never spoken a word in her life. Like, and there's an episode of this one boy named Kyle who he had never spoken ever, and he went to music therapy, and he typed out like no one knows I have perfect pitch, and he started singing. And he in order to write his music, he would go and visit his mom in her dreams and have her help
mm,
him. And the way that he would do it is he would like go and visit his mom or in the dream world, and he would try to wake her up, and he would be like, wake up mom, and she wasn't catching on, and so he would start doing really weird things to try to get her to like lucid dream. So the first thing he did was he took like a playing card, like the ace of spades or something. He like poked a hole through it and held it up and looked at her through the card. And when his mom woke up that morning, went into the kitchen, he was holding up that card.
mm.
And so that let her know like this is real. So they started communicating in the dream world, and she helped him like write 2 albums. And he sings. He's never spoken a word in his life, and he sings about like telepathy, and like it's just insane. Like the stuff that these kids are doing. I mean, there's one kid that was like 10 that he knew his purpose coming into Earth. He was like, "Oh yeah, I'm a light worker. I was sent here. This is what I have to do before I die, and I do this stuff in the dream world every night." And they like tested it, and he even he had like a friend that I guess was not doing well that he would communicate with telepathically. They found this friend in real life. So they were able to like prove that all this stuff was
Mm.
real. Like there's a kid that can put his hand on a book and know what's in the book just by touching it. Just stuff like
Wow.
this.
Okay. All right. All right. You sold me. I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to listen to these. I wonder if there
So
is
it's
there a book
amazing.
version.
No, but there is, if you go on telepathy tapes on YouTube, there is
Mhm.
a version that it has all the subtitles that you can read. Like as
Oh,
it's,
okay.
so it's like a video version just for people
Yeah,
who need words.
I do. I kind of do. I watch
They just
all of my
released it.
movies. I have to have subtitles on it. I don't know why. It's just how my brain works. I need to like read and see it at the same time.
Well, I just
Um,
listened to the subtitle version, so they
mhm.
just released it, and so they
Oh, okay.
just finished season 1. It's still very new. I think it came out like I could be wrong, like 10 months ago maybe. So it's been
Mm,
been within this like past year that the first
yeah.
season has come out, and it's like the crazy thing about it, the most crazy thing to me, is how much it's shaken the scientific community. They're really looking at this like it's real now, like
Well,
it's gonna
I should
change
hope so. I
everything.
mean, you can only cherry pick things for so long and like curate your reality for so long. It's like the scientific world has ignored so much because it doesn't fit. I mean, especially with like archaeology and anthropology, like there are buildings filled with like artifacts and skeletons that don't fit what science
Yeah,
deems real. So it's like, what do you
and
do
they
with
just
all this
ignore
stuff?
it.
You've Yeah, exactly. Like there's so much out there that doesn't quite fit in with what science. I mean, look, I don't have a bone to pick with science, but I do have a bone to pick with people who like curate their reality, like that. It's just there's so much out there that we still don't know, and you can't claim to know everything and then Like science just makes these rules and then it's like, okay, well, this rule has been made, so there's
We
already
can
a
never
precedent
change it.
set. You can't
Yeah.
change it. So
But if
yeah.
you look
So
back throughout history, there's these like pivotal points, like how I was telling you before, like when consciousness accepted that the world was round and not flat, like
right.
just that like acceptance of that pushed forward our knowledge for the
Yeah.
next, thousands of years. And it, like in the telepathy tapes, they were talking about how we're at that precipice again. We're at that point where we all, as like the conscious collective, have to accept that we're living in a consciousness reality. Like everything is conscious, like plasma itself, that everything communicates and that we're part of it. And we
Hmm.
can tap into that anytime. And it's not weird. Like it is science. Like it is just the way things are. And so many people are like, oh, is everyone autistic these days? And I've thought since the time I was little that it's really because we're all getting an upgrade. And from the earth that we're in now, these upgrades might look like disabilities. But imagine what the earth would be like if we can all communicate with our minds. Like we wouldn't have, because when I speak, I'm autistic, and when I speak, I feel like I'm translating something in my
Mm,
head. That's not natural to me. I
yeah.
don't want to have to feel like I'm translating all the time. It's like exhausting.
I know
When
you
I
have
could,
to kind of have a space in between. It's almost like a lag between your thought and you're like, okay, how do I formulate this?
Mhm.
And then you have to, yeah, it is tiring, isn't it?
And in the telepathy tapes, they say it's like trying to suck an elephant through a straw. Like that's what it's like to speak, and it's so true. Like to
Mm,
me, it's
yeah.
so true.
Right. Well, I have, I have a lot of experience working with autistic people and people with special needs. And I've had some incredible things happen. I don't know if I've told you this story, but so I recently quit my job because I'm working on doing the healing practice full time, and that's a huge project. So I ended up quitting so I could dedicate more time to that. But it was just getting really kind of stressful, and I had some really weird experiences happen that I didn't know what to think of. Like there was one resident in particular that kept showing up like in my meditations and in my dreams, and I would
Oh
hear his
wow.
voice every once in a while when I was having a random thought. There was one time I was having a thought. I was watching a video, and the woman was so over the top excited and happy about something, and it kind of like triggered me. Actually, I was like, what the f is she so happy about? I could never be that happy. And then I heard this guy's voice in my head say, "You could be." And I was all, "Whoa, okay, that's weird."
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and then, I had meditations and he would come in and tell me stuff, and I'm like, "Get out of my meditation, dude. Get out of here." I mean, politely, of course, but like I was like, "We can do this another time." And,
Hmm.
I kind of honestly, I thought it was kind of just me processing things with my subconscious or something. But then I had this day where I was at work and one of the residents was having a challenging day. And so we kind of had to separate residents, put some people in the back, put some people in the front. And I was in one of the rooms with this guy, and I was just documenting medications in the medication room on the computer. And, I was just, wasn't paying attention to the residents at all. And this guy, every once in a while, he'll just say really weird stuff. And he was very low functioning, very, very low functioning, like not able to read, kind of just was very high maintenance. Like he needed 24 hours worth of care all the time. And so he was telling me, he was just saying stuff. And then all of a sudden he said, "Gina, I met your mom the other day." And
Whoa.
I was all click, click, click. Oh yeah. And I was about ready to say, "Oh, lucky you." And before I could say it, he said my mother's name. And that freaked me the fuck out. Like I started shaking. I had to like go outside and like kind of cry a little bit because I was just My mom is very she's in a facility herself. She's kind of at the
Wow.
end of life, and so she's kind of in and out of her body a lot, so it
Hmm.
makes sense on a logical level that those two could probably interact with each other. But to like actually have something like that happen was
Hmm.
so freaky. I couldn't even process it. I didn't know what to do. And so I kind of just had to work the rest of the shift like with this bizarre thing that happened and kind of pretend like everything was normal.
And
And there
there's
were a
not
few
like a
other.
safe place to share that, like, because most
Mm-mm.
people will just like think you're crazy, and that's kind of
Oh,
like
yeah.
the telepathy tapes. Like the doctor, Diane, she was receiving like thousands of stories like that from
Oh,
teachers,
okay.
from caregivers, and I think on the second or third episode, she just interviews like a bunch of them, and just stories like you just told me,
Mhm.
and these people that like there was one kid, a teacher of a special needs class, that the kid was like, hey, like you're I think he said your dad is here today, and the teacher was like, just kind of brushed it off, and then he started like telling her all these details about like her dad,
Mm.
and it really like freaked her out. And then he started
Yeah.
telling her like all the guides that she had around her, and like all her ancestors, and like these stories that no one could have known. And there's one like non-speaking autistic kid on there that says that every person with autism is tapped into that world. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
the most people, most people's like spirits or souls are anchored in their body. But like if you have autism, your soul or spirit might be anchored a little bit above your body. And for those like autistic people who are what we call like lower functioning, they're not actually lower functioning. It just appears that way on Earth, but they're barely
Different
tethered to their
functioning.
body. Yeah, and so their souls or spirits are in a different dimension entirely, right? And so they can
Mm.
travel and they can see things and they can talk to people, and their way of getting to know you might be visiting your family. Like it's weird, but it's like it's just how they do it, and it's normal to
Yeah.
them, but they don't really know that it's not really normal to the rest of us, and
Yeah, right. Well, I had a feeling that, like, maybe we were part of the same soul family or something like that. I definitely felt a special connection to him. Um, but, like, it turns out in my life, most of my friends are on the spectrum. My wife is on the spectrum. Like, most people I feel comfortable around are, autistic to some level. And I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm here to work with that energy. I don't know, but I feel very comfortable around it. I really enjoy it. It's very like, and I don't mean to say that like all autistic people have the same energy, but the people that I was working with, they all had very, I don't know, it was like very like honest, very
Mhm.
authentic and honest in kind of a like how a child is, like they're not
Mhm.
as, and I don't mean like childish. I mean like not as guarded, not
Yep,
as protected, not as like defensive as with
for sure.
when you're an adult, you develop all of these coping mechanisms and defenses, and they don't. I feel like they don't have that.
Yeah, and I honestly like that was something that I've had to work a lot on because I grew up very like, first of all, undiagnosed. And it's just crazy how obvious it was. And they, like, my mom took me to the doctor because I couldn't hear anything. But then when they tested me with frequencies, I could hear frequencies that humans aren't able to hear, like, or shouldn't be able
Mm,
to hear. And the doctor was like, kind of shocked, like, didn't know what to do with me. And they never did anything. They just let me go home and
yeah.
never diagnosed me. Never, they were just like, oh, well, that's an anomaly,
Hmm.
we'll just let this person go and not think about it again. But like what was happening was I wasn't responding because I was hearing everything. And, I would have like really weird tendencies where I would hit my head on things. And my parents would call it bouncing. I'd like, I think we've talked about this before, but I would just like be moving all the time. I would bounce around.
Hmm.
And it wasn't like deemed as like polite, or it was
Yeah.
weird, and my mom was really didn't want us to stand out. And so I was like, I have a memory of like being strapped to a chair, and I was like forced growing up to, and nothing against my mom, she just didn't know,
Well,
she
you
just
grew up in
had,
a really religious family too, which
yeah,
I'm sure adds a layer.
for sure. And, it's like my mom just really wanted all of us to be normal. Just we had a lot of stuff going on in our family, and my mom, like, she prayed every day. She told me she prayed every day for us not to have, like, some mental thing. Just my dad struggled a lot. And so she never wanted that for us. She never wanted us to struggle like he had to. And, nothing against her, but like she just didn't want to face it. She was in denial. And it was really hard because she forced me to appear normal. So I had to learn how to mask from a really young age. And it was just self-preservation. So recently, the past like 2 or 3 years, I've been letting myself, like appear more autistic again because it heals my nervous system. Like I'm not as tired
Mm,
during the day. Like I work at like a plant nursery and I water plants, all day and take care of plants. And when I'm doing that, I can't just stand still. So I like move around, flap my hands, and I'll have people come up to me and be like, wow, you really love your job. Because from the outside, it appears like I'm probably dancing, but I'm just like regulating myself.
mm,
And I've noticed that I've been able to develop deeper connections with people, just being authentic, and that people don't judge me like I thought they would. Um, Most people are very understanding, and even some of my coworkers just want to know like my life story because a lot of them have non-speaking autistic kids or kids that are neurodiverse and have, certain struggles, and they want to know like what it was like growing up. And so people are more curious, and I haven't seen like that mean side. And even if I did, I wouldn't care. I would just not associate with that person. So the way I view it is just by being myself, I'm drawing the people to me that might need some help with something they're going through, or that might show me something that I need help with in processing, or that's just kind of the way I view it. So just trying to be as authentic as, I possibly can from this point on has been my goal. And it's been hard.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of it's such a like a what's it, a buzzword these days, authenticity, but I had always thought that authenticity was this like level of purity or something that was to be attained at some point, and it was something that you were supposed to strive for. And recently I had a friend tell me that that's not authenticity. Authenticity is just accepting yourself for who you are,
And
like
it's
warts
being
and
in the
all.
moment without having to or feeling the need to change anything about the present moment.
Mm,
Like that's
yeah.
really what it is. It's just be accepting everything as it is and yourself as it is and just living in the present moment.
Yeah, and not feeling this urge, this compulsion to change things. Yeah. Yeah, because it's so gosh, you look out into the exterior, into the collective, your neighborhood, whatever, and you see things that are going not the way that you want them to. And a lot of people just, man, that's all they want to do is change the exterior. But like I kind of recently had a remembering that the all that is, source, creator, knows more and knows better than me and kind of planned this whole thing out. So
Hmm.
my human perspective is not the same as spirits, as creators. So maybe I should just kind of relax and enjoy the ride instead of stressing out and trying to think about how things could be so much better and how they should be so much better, especially the things that I can't control,
For sure.
you
and
know?
and that's like part of the lesson, and why I think a lot of people who we on earth we view that have like disabilities or whatever, why they are able to live in the present moment. They
Mm,
don't worry about all that stuff, like they don't think about really the future or worry about how something's going to go or get anxiety like that. Of course, not speaking for everyone, but the majority of people, like in my family, we have a lot of people with like Down syndrome. They are always in the present moment. And
mm,
if they're happy, they're not going to hide it. If they're sad, they're not going to hide it. They just like are. And there's such a beauty to that. And
yeah.
like we all need to be reminded, that we can just be allowed to just be who we are. Like we don't really need to change it. Like we're here to be who we are, you know? And I think
Yeah.
like if we accept that about ourselves, like change will just happen naturally.
Hmm.
Because I have the same thing. I'm always like, okay, what's the next thing I need to work on? You know, what's the next thing I need to work on? And I was listening to a podcast and it was like fixing yourself can be an addiction. It really
Oh,
can.
yeah. Mm. It's like a hamster wheel because you always feel that you're broken. And the whole point to this life game is that we've always been whole. We've always been whole, we've always been home. There's nowhere to go, there's nowhere to get to.
Hmm.
It's just remembering that we are whole and that we are connected to source, God, whatever you want to call it, because we're all
Hmm.
the same thing. And that's the lesson. It's not that we're constantly I've definitely been in that hamster wheel myself where it's just like, oh, I need to work on this, my solar plexus chakra, my confidence, my root chakra, this or that, blah, my healing
We
practice, my
overcomplicate everything.
podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just if we could just let go just a little bit. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's one of the big lessons that I've come here with is to learn how to just not try to control everything because it's pointless. It's
Yep.
pointless. Everything goes haywire and sideways when you try to control it.
Hmm. I
So,
mean, the Buddhists were definitely onto something with like attachment, right? Because they said like attachment is what causes suffering. You know,
mhm,
if you can just let go, you might have bad things happen, but you can choose not to experience suffering. You know,
mhm,
and it's like oh, there's one uh oh, I'm trying to remember his name. He was like one of the kings of like ancient Greece or something. His name might come to me. But he was like a philosopher and he was like kind of proved that, you know, riches didn't destroy someone, but he would live in the moment. And his writings are just so amazing. If I can think of his name. But he would write about like how, you know, the the reason why we all suffer is because we just don't we worry about the things we can't control. And he
mhm,
was saying how like, you know, even if you got like a terminal illness, you can't control that. Like, why worry about it? It's like just let go of the things that we can't control and focus on the things that we can.
yeah.
And that's the lesson that I've been trying to embrace recently. And I think it's been my whole life, you know, a journey to kind of get to that point. But it's getting
And
better.
that's okay. That's okay if it takes a whole life to learn that lesson, you know? That's another thing is that I always have a tendency or I had okay, clear, cancel, delete. In the past, I have always had a tendency to try to rush to the finish and to especially with this like enlightenment ascension thing,
It can
the
be
journey,
toxic.
this walk, this path. I had a tendency, I was at first I came into it and I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna fix myself and then life will be great. And I'll just plateau at this really great, peaceful sort of place and I won't have to worry about anything because I'll be enlightened. And it's like, I don't think that's really how it works.